morning. It is Friday, October 24th, 2014, and this is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, a day after the deadly terror attack in Jerusalem, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accuses Palestinian President Mahmud Abbas of supporting violence and slams what he refers to as international weakness in combating terrorism. A physician with Doctors Without Borders who returned to New York City after treating Ebola victims in West Africa tests positive for the virus, setting up fresh fears about the spread of the disease. And later on the show, 12 years after Daniel Pearl was kidnapped and brutally murdered by extremists in 2003, artists honor his memory in a special concert in Israel. Good morning, I'm Yael Avi. We begin with some breaking news overnight. A confirmed Ebola patient in New York City, Dr. Craig Spencer, who recently returned from West Africa, has been diagnosed with Ebola and is quarantined in a New York hospital. This is what Governor Andrew Cuomo had to say about it late last night.
Today, testing confirmed that a patient here in New York City had tested positive for Ebola. The patient is now here in Bellevue Hospital. We want to state at the outset, there is no reason for New Yorkers to be alarmed. The patient in question is a doctor who has worked with Ebola patients in West Africa. And when his symptoms emerged, he was taken to Bellevue by specially trained emergency medical service workers who followed all transport protocols. The patient is now in isolation. The health department has a team of disease detectives who have been at work tracing all of the patient's contacts, and we are prepared to quarantine contacts as necessary.
Apologies. This was, of course, Mayor Bill de Blasio in New York City discussing the situation, calming the citizens down. We will take a closer look at Ebola worldwide and, of course, this latest case in New York City later on in the show. And now we begin with the situation in Jerusalem, a day after the deadly terror attack there. Let's first have a conversation with Chief Inspector Mickey Rosenfeld, the head of Chief Foreign Press spokesman for the Israel Police. Mickey, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, a tense situation today in Jerusalem. Let's discuss a little bit what happened yesterday in the city a day after the terror attack.
Well, in general, there were disturbances that the Israeli police had to deal with in and around different neighborhoods. The situation obviously being completely under control as far as we're concerned, with extra police units that were mobilized in the different areas inside Jerusalem. And security assessments were made yesterday evening in connection with the Temple Mount prayers today. They're scheduled to take place this afternoon. And as of now, there's an age limit which has been implemented. Only men from the age 40 upwards will be allowed on the Temple Mount, and women of all ages.
Okay, and when it comes to, Friday press today, noon, but yesterday, in and around the city, there were more scuffles. Extra security today in Jerusalem, when you say more heightened security, how many more forces, how many more policemen, any closures?
Well, until now, there's been more than 400 police officers that have been moved into Jerusalem, and that's specifically to deal with the disturbances that have continued since the terrorist attack took place. But in general, we're talking about border police, special patrol units, police that are capable of dealing with riots, etc., obviously using only non-lethal weapons. And we're carrying out security assessments all the time.
Now, there were claims also, obviously, on the Palestinian side that the attack was not an attack, rather an accident. When it comes to investigating the perpetrator, the assailant, and what happened, any new information on that?
No, the investigation is more or less complete. There were clear indications in what we saw both from the CCTV footage as well as what we know from the terrorist and his background, that he was from Silwan. We know that there were connections, family connections with the Hamas, etc. And we also know that he served a number of times in Israeli jails for terrorist-related activities. So the terrorist situation and what took place was behind us. We're looking ahead, and obviously important to have strong security implemented in and around Jerusalem over the next 24 to 48 hours.
And you'll be watching closely, as will we. Thank you, Mickey Rosenfeld from Jerusalem. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lashed out yesterday at the international community for showing weakness, to use his words, and for failing to pressure Palestinian President Mahmud Abbas to denounce yesterday's terror attack in Jerusalem, as well as failing to criticize the latter's support of terrorism. On his part, Abbas stated that the escalating violence in and around Jerusalem is the result of Israeli incitement, and so the blame game continues. But as Friday prayers in Al-Aqsa Mosque are set to begin in a few hours from now. All eyes are on the city. We are joined in studio by the president of the Levantine Consultancy Group, Daniel Nisman. Daniel, good morning to you. And of course, by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Tal, good morning.
Good morning.
Before we break this down, let's take a look at the following report.
Wednesday's fatal attack in Jerusalem, which killed a baby and wounded 8 people, was followed by ongoing clashes between Palestinians and Israeli police forces. Thursday opened with stones and firecrackers thrown at a Jewish daycare center in East Jerusalem, with no injuries reported, continuing a tense night of riots in the city. Yesterday's driver was identified as 21-year-old Palestinian Abdelrahman Shaloudi from Silwan neighborhood in Arab East Jerusalem. He was shot by police as he tried to flee the scene on foot and was in serious condition in hospital. Hours later, his family denied it was an intentional attack, and residents from his neighborhood began hurling rocks and patrol bombs at police, who responded with stun grenades. Meanwhile, Israeli President Reuven Rivlin was among hundreds of mourners attending the funeral of 3-month-old Hannah Zissel Baron, who died after the car slammed into the light railway station. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh praised the driver, justifying it as a, quote, kill for a kill, as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blamed both Hamas and Palestinian President Mahmud Abbas for the attack and for inciting violence.
The Jerusalem attack is supported by Abbas. He both empowers the murderers and embraces the organization to which they belong, Hamas. We are faced with international weakness, not even one word of criticism of Abbas. But we are not weak. We will stand strong for our rights and duties.
On the Palestinian side, Ahmed Assaf, spokesman of the Palestinian movement Fatah, headed by Abbas, accused Israel of being responsible for the growing tension.
The root of all the problem and tension in the region is the Israeli occupation. There will not be peace or stability, and no one will be living in peace in the region until the Palestinian people feel security and stability in a free, independent state as prescribed by international law, the resolution of the UN, and all signed agreements.
No Palestinian group claimed responsibility for the attack, but hostilities are once again on the rise in the city, already battered and exhausted by what seems like an endless dispute.
We're joined on the phone now from Jerusalem by Dimitri Diliani, member of the Fatah Revolutionary Council. Dimitri, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Good morning. Now, there are a lot of speculations today about Jerusalem as tensions are rising in the city. Lots of Israeli security in and around there. People are speaking about the Palestinians actually not initiative, but the will to actually start somewhat of a third intifada in and around Jerusalem. Would you say that that is the case?
I didn't hear the last part of the question.
That there is basically there are theories that the Palestinians are ready to start a third intifada in and around Jerusalem. Do you think that is the case?
The Jerusalem intifada has started already on July the 2nd. Since the child Muhammad Abu Khdeir was burnt alive by settlers. Since then, the Israeli forces has cracked down on Palestinians, resulting in the arrest of over 800 Jerusalemites. Over 350 of them already went to court. We have 1,000 injuries. And followed by the murder of 4 Jerusalemites. Since then, Jerusalem has been seeing clashes on a daily basis, especially in areas like Wadi Juz, Sheikh Jarrah, Suwani, Mount of Olives, the Old City, Silwan, Beit Hanina, Shafat Refugee Camp, and Kalandia Refugee Camp. All these have been witnesses almost on daily basis clashes with the Israelis, and Israel, the right-wing government of Israel, is fueling this by more crackdown, by more collective punishment on the Jerusalemites. It seems like the Israeli government is really seeking that because people will revolt against injustice, something that we've been living under since 1967, and now it's escalating into more violent, brutal treatment by the right-wing of Israel. So if we say that it's going to start, it has started on July 2nd. Until today, we haven't had one day of calm in occupied East Jerusalem.
Voices around the Palestinian street, voices coming from the Palestinian street. Are we to expect something specific today? Is there any kind of organized form of revolt? Because, I mean, the tensions in the city today are very high.
Yes, and it is expected that there will be clashes in many of the areas surrounding the old city of Jerusalem, within the walls of the old city of Jerusalem, and of course, probably one of the hottest spots would be Silwan, where the guy that was killed by Israeli security 2 days ago lives. So yes, it is expected, but it has been every day, and especially on Fridays. So yes, but we do expect it to be more. If you're asking if this is organized, I do not think it's organized. It's genuine, popular feelings and mobilization, natural mobilization, and response to the continuous settlement activity, to the continuous policy of the Israeli government of turning its back to the peace process and basically suffocating the West Bank, including East Jerusalem.
Okay. Dimitri Diliani from Jerusalem, a member of the Fatah Revolutionary Council. Thank you for joining us this morning. Join in studio I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev, and of course Daniel Nisman of the Levantine Consultancy Group, president of the Levantine Consultancy Group. Tal, this is a week that spiraled out of control, but for pursuing what we saw 2 days ago in Jerusalem, the reactions to that, Prime Minister Netanyahu gave a very, very strong speech yesterday, blaming, of course, Mahmud Abbas and actually pointing fingers at the international community. What is the government, ready to do in reaction to this?
Well, Netanyahu, I think, wants to just give an example to his leadership, and the strong statements we heard from him yesterday are because there was a lot of anger inside the Israeli government towards Palestinian President Mahmud Abbas following remarks he made about Temple Mount last weekend, and this is what is inciting these accusations from many ministers regarding his responsibility to the events and to this attack. But on the other hand, Netanyahu is also being attacked by the right. We have right-wing ministers in his cabinet who are demanding, first of all, to react to this terror attack with a massive settlement construction plan.
That's Naftali Bennett.
Naftali Bennett and Uri Ariel, the Jewish home, and this is the appropriate Zionist response, and it is traditionally an appropriate Zionist response to have a settlement construction advance in response to terror. And we have to say that in the past few months there is an informal settlement freeze in Jerusalem and in the West Bank, and this is something that is creating some political tensions without respect to any even before this terror attack occurred. So yesterday Netanyahu does lash out at the international community, but he also promises a very tough response. He promises to exhaust the sovereignty, the Jewish sovereignty of the united Jerusalem. But Netanyahu mainly wants to contain the situation. But it also serves him politically if we take it a bit to the other side and the more cynical side of things. This week began with Moshe Kahlon, who is one of Netanyahu's future contenders in the political system, primarily on the socio-economic agenda. And this is not good. Netanyahu is not good in the socio-economic agenda. And Kahlon announced he will be running for elections. We have a lot of buzz about elections. The common assumption is that the elections will be in the upcoming year. And Netanyahu has, if he wants to get these elections, if he wants to preserve his control, and he wants to preserve his premiership, he has to have a security agenda. Right. He has to have a diplomatic agenda, because he will not win, he will not gain the premiership again if the socio-economic agenda is the one on the table.
Is the one on the table. That's from within the political arena in Israel. Interestingly enough, though, this talk over the course, Daniel Nisman, over the course of the last several days about a third intifada, about a Jerusalem intifada, as we spoke to Dimitri Diliani, I'm wondering out loud, indeed, there have been scuffles in and around Jerusalem, but when it comes to what happened in Silwan over the course of the last week, isn't it a direct reaction, actually, both the terror attack, both the tension in the city, to the Israeli construction? And do the Palestinians of East Jerusalem actually have the energy, and I'm asking that, I'm wondering, to carry out a third intifada? That's another thing.
So, well, first I actually want to say one small thing from the Palestinian political side of things, about Mahmoud Abbas's behavior. There is a big difference in the way he's behaving now in reaction to this terror attack, to the killing, let's say, of the 3 youths over the summer, he very rare admittance, he condemned those kidnappings. he does not have any more political capital left to, like he did before, to condemn these attacks, okay? In between these two attacks, we had the conflict in Gaza, which rose Hamas's popularity in the West Bank. He can't, and there's also the issue at Al-Aqsa. The Israeli restrictions at prayers at Al-Aqsa are not being covered in the Western media, but in the Arab media, every day, every time a Israeli Jew or a policeman goes up to the Temple Mount, it's being covered like it's storming the Temple Mount, storming the Al-Aqsa Mosque, rather.
And you were reminding us, actually, there's the law that's trying to be passed, actually, that Israelis can come up to the...
Huge coverage from Morocco to Baghdad. It is the hottest thing in the Arab media, and it is, and the focal point is on East Jerusalem. Now, to answer your question about East Jerusalem is in a vacuum. It's not like the West Bank, and it's not like the Israeli Arab sector.
It's an entity,
okay?
Almost, yeah.
I'll give you an example. In Hebron, today there's supposed to be a Hamas-organized march that will be in support of Al-Aqsa. Who's going to crack down on that protest? The Palestinian Authority. In the Israeli Arab sector, it's the Israeli police. But in East Jerusalem, you have a vacuum, okay? There's no Palestinian police. The Israeli police are rarely there. They only enter to crack down on protests. And there's no element of community policing, okay? There's only a reactive force. So you have this vacuum where there's the security fence that crosses through, destroys their economy. You have the events at Al-Aqsa, which are stirring things up. You have the the moving of families into Silwan neighborhood, right or wrong. It is still creating tension. You have the killing of Mohammed Abu Khdeir. And then you have Hamas from Gaza, from Turkey, the Islamic movement northern branch inside Israel. You have influence from the top down, fomenting unrest, okay? These issues at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, this is not spontaneous. This is Hamas making an organized effort with cells to destabilize the East Jerusalem area.
Can we say that Hamas is actually gaining a lot more traction? It's gaining a lot more support in East Jerusalem?
Yes,
okay,
we can, because there's no Israeli police on the one hand, and there are no Palestinian police like there is in the West Bank, which is why when we're talking, to answer your question about a third intifada, I would say that even before the killing of Mohammed Abu Khdeir, you had daily attacks, stoning attacks, that went uncovered. I would say that this very mixture of a grassroots and top-down influenced uprising has been in the making and has been only getting stronger, okay? And it is in Hamas's interest to destabilize this area, and they know that they have a vacuum with which to operate in because there are no PA police, and because the Israeli police, there's no element of community policing like there is in other areas.
And President Mahmud Abbas, actually, as you mentioned at the beginning, is cannot say anything given the events of the last summer, or in terms of...
Well, let's put it this way. If he were to do that,
right,
the reaction domestically, I mean, everybody they first look at domestic politics, excluding no one. So when Abbas before he makes a statement, he's not talking about the international community. He's certainly not thinking about appeasing the Israelis too much. He's thinking about his own survival, his internal support, his Politburo. They're thinking about their own lives, their own survival. What will happen if there are elections? All these types of things. That's what they're thinking about before they make a statement about condemning any sort of terror attack.
No.
But in that respect, just to suggest an idea that has been floating around on the peace camp of the government, and it's a very cynical idea, but whoever knows and understands this region, it does have some kind of sense. Of course, another round of violence, another third intifada would be a horrible thing, but people in the international community have been warning Israel and the Palestinians again and again
over and over,
that the status quo is unsustainable, and as long as there was quiet and as long as everything seems okay on the ground, then really nothing can prompt each of the leaders to take any courageous decisions. If there is another round of violence, there will be, God forbid, victims of this, and this is of course, but this could in the political arena create a situation in which there will be some kind of political shift that can move forward into some kind of progress. After violence, it's easier. After you have a very big, after you have a round of violence, it might be easier to move forward. But then again, you look at the Gaza conflict, and we see the aftermath of the Gaza conflict. That did not create in the end any political.
I love the optimistic nature of it, but my first reaction was think about the last summer and think about the Gaza conflict, and we're still looking at some sort of a status quo.
But on the other hand, look at the Oslo Accords and look at the Madrid. There are regional circumstances we cannot predict. There are things that can happen, and it's true that Jerusalem Jerusalem is a ticking bomb, and as long as nothing happens, and as long as it seems quiet, Israel will continue to construct the West Bank, the East Jerusalem settlements.
And any kind of concessions made later on are going to be made harder if there is ever a process. That's true if the status quo is maintained.
And Netanyahu might be forced to make the tough decisions because he is having his right-wing ministers pressuring him to continue construction at this moment. And this is something that the other side of his government, the left-wing center side of his government, will not be able to live with. This might move forward to some kind of political decision in the end.
Well, currently, of course, we're looking at sprinkles of violence, and as Daniel Nisman mentioned, of course, these are sadly not covered as much in the media, but all eyes are today on Jerusalem, as we mentioned at the beginning of this segment. Thank you, Tal Shalev, for joining me this morning. Of course, Daniel Nisman as well, and we move forward. Moving on to the next topic, under heavy guard, Canada's Prime Minister paid a somber visit yesterday to the site that began a day of horror in the country's capital. A gunman killing an honor guard soldier, then opening fire inside the nearby Parliament building. Now, the assault in Ottawa shocked a country that rarely experiences gun violence, but has witnessed 2 attacks on members of its armed forces in recent days. Earlier this week, a soldier was killed in a hit-and-run that the authorities called also an act of terrorism, and in each case, the soldiers were targeted by individuals who had been barred from traveling aboard by Canadian authorities. Let's first take a look at the recap of events in Canada this week and then take it from there.
Earlier Wednesday, a gunman attacked Canada's Parliament, with roughly 30 shots erupting near where Prime Minister Stephen Harper was speaking with members of his Conservative Party. A wounded soldier was transported to a hospital where he later died from his wounds after police reinforcements arrived on the scene. Dozens of witnesses and members of Parliament were also seen assisting after the gunman was shot dead himself.
Literally, I was just taking off my jacket to go into caucus. I hear this pop, 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 possibly 10 shots, don't really know. Thought it was dynamite or construction rather than anything else. Suddenly the security guards come rushing down the hallways.
Witness accounts indicated the man who shot dead the soldier, guarding the National War Memorial in central Ottawa, went on to attack the Parliament building minutes later. Canadian police said, however, they could not at this point confirm it was the same person. Prime Minister Harper said in an address to the nation on Wednesday that security agencies will do everything needed to counter threats to the country.
This week's events are a grim reminder that Canada is not immune to the types of terrorist attacks we have seen elsewhere around the world. We are also reminded that attacks on our security personnel and on our institutions of governance are, by their very nature, attacks on our country, on our values, on our society, on us Canadians, as a free and democratic people who embrace human dignity for all.
There has not been any claim of responsibility for the attack, and the terror level has recently been upgraded. A couple of days ago, a suspected jihadist ran over 2 Canadian soldiers, one who later died from his wounds. It remains unclear whether there was any connection between Wednesday's shooting and the attack on Monday. The National Assembly in Quebec witnessed a shooting similar in 1984 when a man in a military uniform opened fire trying to assassinate the premier, killing 3 people.
Joining us from Jerusalem is former Ambassador of Israel to Canada, legal advisor for Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Alan Baker. Good morning to you, Ambassador Baker.
Good morning.
First of all, thank you for joining us. And looking at the events in Canada, I have to say the first striking thing to me was actually the reaction of the Canadian authorities, so much more, dumbed down and very calm. But, I mean, this is something that shakes Canada up in a way that, that we've never seen before. Is it a type of terror attack like that was even expected in a country like Canada?
No, of course not. It's something that the Canadians couldn't even anticipate or think about. This was an attack on their very center of government, the ceremonial center of Canada, their National War Memorial, the Parliament, the center of governance of the whole of Canada. This is very significant. And the Canadians are usually calm people, and that perhaps explains why their reaction wasn't a crazy reaction. But nevertheless, this attack was certainly a wake-up call for all Canadians.
I mean, is Canada, and you've served there, when something like this happens, is it a country that's set or, has any kind of plans in place for terror attacks over the course of the last, I'm assuming in North America, over the course of the last 2 decades or decade and a half since 9/11, countries have something set in place? Or would this come as a complete shock? And do you believe also that this means that Canada will try and step up any kind of efforts against battles in the Middle East, given all kinds of theories that this is somebody who had not affiliation, but, harbored, feelings and beliefs in the Islamic State organization?
Look, the Canadians, because they're part of North America, their security preparedness is probably no less than that of the United States. And at any given time, their authorities are in contact with other world international security authorities. But the fact that this actually happened and didn't just happen, it wasn't just an act of terror, but it was something, as I said, hit their very, very center of government. This was something that really woke them up and brought them into the real world. Canada is a country that always believed that they're so open and free that nothing can really happen, and here it's happened.
Then what do you believe, as somebody who served there, on the auspices of the Israeli Foreign Ministry, what do you believe will be the political move of Canada after something like this? Do you think that we'll be seeing more pushes of them to join international coalitions to battle all kinds of foes in the Middle East, or is this something that will just dumb over?
Well, first of all, it will pass over. Within a few days, it will pass over and life will come back to what it was. But the Canadians are already quite active in international activities. They're part of the coalition fighting the Islamic State, and they've always been very, very much involved politically in the issues of the Middle East.
And the issues of the Middle East and East. But that said, right now they're not very much part, I think, of the coalition that is actually trying to fight the Islamic State organization.
Yes, yes they are.
They are, but not, what I'm asking is, do we think that there would be a push when the Prime Minister there comes out and says that we will find you anywhere and everywhere? Is this the type of country, Canada, that will push to actually do something more than just airstrikes from the air? That will push for the coalition to actually put troops on the ground in the Middle East, or is that not something that we can expect from the Canadians?
Well, as far as I know, there was a vote in the Canadian Parliament to be part of the coalition, and I think that once there's a decision taken to put boots on the ground, I'm sure that Canada will be part of this, because Canada sends troops. Canada has been involved in sending troops to the Middle East. They were on the border between Israel and Syria.
Right.
They were in Afghanistan. So I presume that if the others do this, then they will
do as well. Ambassador Baker, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Always a pleasure having you on. And when we get back, more about the Ebola patient diagnosed in New York City. Before anything else, though, the news. Good morning. Thank you for staying. It's October 24th, 2014. And it's the time of day to say hello. Good morning.
Good morning, yes.
Tony Grant, news, headlines you missed while scanning the news, yes.
Yeah, where is October going?
I know, I was actually thinking October 24th, the only thing that went through my head was, ooh, it's Halloween almost.
Almost, yes. And you know what's particularly frightening?
Okay. I set it up and you bring it home.
The relationship between some people such as Obama and Netanyahu.
Yeah.
According to this headline from the Times of Israel. Former U.S. ambassador to Israel from 2001 to 2005 says that he detects a sense of betrayal in the Obama-Netanyahu relationship, and that it's one of the
just now
strong language. He's saying that he's never seen a worse relationship between a president and a prime minister, and this guy's a professional diplomat. So he's seen a lot.
I think it's pretty evident, almost like, I'm trying to think of famous feuds in history of people who didn't get along. Barbara Walters, Diane Sawyer, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
In some ways.
It's almost like the opposite of Jimmy Carter and Menachem Begin.
Yeah, it's the opposite. Nice.
Yeah,
those two aren't getting along. That's not boding well for the region.
It's not boding well. I mean, a lot of people, the countdown, 2 years left of Obama in the White House, but 2 years is a long time.
It's a long time. It's a long time. And I think that you said it very right, that within the Israeli administration, I think they're sitting there counting down. But a lot can happen in 2 years in this region,
absolutely.
as we know.
But of course, the institutional grounding between the two countries is very strong.
It's very strong.
But
the Jewish
thank
lobby is also
goodness
very
for
strong.
that.
Congress and Senate, so we've got that too. Okay.
Interpersonal relationships count for a lot in the Middle East, of course. National Post, Canada, of course, they are still reeling from the drama of these big. The word for it, attacks in the actual House of Commons. And here you have a fallen soldier mourned by Harper's and mother of dead gunmen saying, "I'm crying for the victims, not the son." So you have that aspect. There's a picture of the sealed off war memorial where the Canadian
began,
corporal began, and where the guy who's guarding it was shot before Michael Zehoff-Bibot
as you said, things
went
that
to Parliament Hill.
That we don't expect in Canada. That's what we discussed, at the beginning. It's something that, the Canadians themselves, I think, were very shocked. But it was interesting, I can't stress it enough, that both the Canadian news coverage and the Canadian leadership and the Prime Minister, very calm, very...
As you would expect from Canada.
As you would expect from Canada, but I think the rest of the world should, learn from those reactions.
Absolutely.
Enough
and
said.
Just about the drama here, when the guy who actually gunned down the gunman walked back into Parliament, there was like a standing ovation. The guy named Kevin Vickers, so it's like national hero, of course. Yeah. So lots of drama up there in over there in Canada.
in Canada country.
Now we haven't talked about Naftali Bennett for a while.
Yes.
So we are now.
Yeah, I was wondering, Naftali Bennett.
Now, this is a story in the Financial Times, which is maybe no secret of a headline making in Israel, but here we have Israeli Minister of the Economy calls for, quote unquote, new models instead of Palestinian state. Now, he says that...
what's the suggestion?
Well, he says that and I'm quoting here, what we learned is that there's no particular method for preventing missiles being shot at you from a piece of land you handed over to your enemies.
Right.
Now, he's also, promoting these alternatives, it's sort of in an off-the-radar kind of way, but this is getting play in the international media.
The fact that this made it into the Financial Times is slightly frightening. It's interesting because this, Naftali Bennett and his party hold a big chunk of the coalition who keeps pushing the Israeli government, the coalition right now, to build more and more settlements in and around Jerusalem in the West Bank. So now, taking it over also to the foreign press, it's interesting that he actually got himself in. But
he's quite media savvy, and he's regularly on
slightly with an English,
News,
with the capability of speaking English, because he lived, I think, in San Francisco, almost like a young Netanyahu. Yes.
And made a fortune in, I think it was high tech, and so of course there's that tie to maybe being in the Financial Times as well. So speaking of high tech, Facebook is back in the news. Mark Zuckerberg went to China. And was speaking Chinese. Well, let's not forget that his wife, Priscilla Chan, is Chinese. Now, does that make her a shiksa? It does. But, it does. But a good one, a beautiful one. So you see, he doesn't want to just crack the Chinese market. He wants to communicate better with Priscilla's family.
I think it's commendable, and I'll say this as an American as well, that when Americans speak more languages than English, amen.
Absolutely.
Good for them. But wow.
Yeah. Now he wasn't, he's not totally bilingual here, but he showed off enough skills that the Chinese were wowed. Tongues were wagging. Yeah.
Tongues are wagging, lovely. So the man is the young man is very rich,
the young
billionaire, and speaks Chinese. We hate him. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So
l'chaim to that.
Yeah. Facebook's still blocked in China, of course, for the past 5 years.
He's trying to woo them in their own language.
There could be some wooing going on.
Yes.
Yeah. You have some public statements from the Lebanese Army Command, which are quite interesting. For the first time, they have publicly addressed the issue of the 27 hostages that are being held by ISIS in the Nusra Front. Right. And they're trying to kind of boost morale. There was a statement from the army saying that there's no room for traitors or anybody you might think of defecting from the army of Lebanon, and they're trying to say that they're basically strong and have confidence in the Lebanese army as they're facing these terrorist threats. Been a lot of donations to the Lebanese army of late. The UK was the most recent one, giving some defense equipment,
which
which $16 million. They need it, I think.
As you rightfully so mentioned, any morning that you bring news from Lebanon, is that country also, when it comes to be the the battle against the Islamic State organization, whatnot. It's very much stuck in the middle there. And it's the Lebanese army that would need a lot of support if, if IS...
needs bolstering for many reasons, It's a
Definitely.
complicated situation, but interesting to see that.
How that is unfolding.
Yeah.
There, it came out. Yes.
Did you hear about Hungary and wanting to impose the world's first internet tax?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, because taxing goulash is just no longer fashionable. But
and taxing goulash, is a topic that we can discuss for hours. But I have to say, every time I see something like that, and why the Hungarians, I know, but the internet, this vessel that was supposed to be free for all, this new revolution.
They say that that telecommunications has changed and taxation methods should change along with it.
Now that it's owned by big companies such as Google, and of course.
It's only going to be 62 cents per gigabyte.
Okay, good enough.
Or 150 forints.
Per gigabyte.
Yeah,
yes.
something like that.
Okay.
So anyway.
Thank you, Hungary.
Yeah, good news from Budapest there for the tax.
And Iowa, moving on.
Did you see this beautiful picture of lions?
No, lions, tigers,
an
and
American
bears.
photographer, Michael Nichols, won the award for Photographer of the Year.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, 5 female lions resting with their cubs in Tanzania's Serengeti National Park. Look at those beautiful cats.
No, and just for that, just for that reason, that's exactly what I would like to be doing right this second.
Yes.
I got to tell you, we've got the sea behind us.
Yeah.
So you and I can just perch
Get
on
us
the
some
table
lions and just rest
move
with
it
our
on.
cubs.
Yeah, no, but and he won the 2000 Wildlife Photographer of the Year.
Yeah,
Yes,
great stuff.
Great stuff. Beautiful stuff.
Getting close to those lions. Wow, like Melanie Griffith.
No, we're like you, sitting next to me every morning.
Yes, but
Ka-ching! Yeah,
but I've got a mug here.
You have a mug.
If
just
I need to use it.
Did
you hear about we talked about Apple Pay?
No, they're charging.
Apple Pay has launched. Yeah, they've actually been double charging people. And some
people are paying for this.
Apple Pay glitch has caused some Bank of America users to get charged twice. That doesn't bode too well for those that basically give over a lot of their economic decision making. Not to say decision making, but transactional capability to Apple.
To Apple.
Yeah, they're correcting the mistake, but in the meantime, the money was taken out of their accounts, apparently.
No. Well, and thank you, Apple, for that.
Apple is not a bank.
Yeah, Apple is not. Yeah, let's remind people, Apple is not a bank.
Not yet.
Yeah,
so
it has most of your money, but it's not a bank yet. Yes.
On the way.
Yeah, Tony, thank you. Stick with me for the next segment. On to our next topic. A physician with Doctor Without Borders who recently returned to New York City from West Africa tested positive for Ebola, spreading fears across one of the biggest metropolitans in the world. That is actually breaking news from overnight. All of New York City, of course, already Mayor de Blasio has tried to calm fears all around the city. This doctor supposedly came back a little bit over a week ago. If you're reading the headlines in the States today or around the world, people are tracing what he did over the course of the last week, which strains he took. But that is the biggest news about Ebola this morning. And of course, there's also a suspected case of Ebola in the Middle East, a Lebanese man who arrived from West Africa, suspected of having the virus as well. And this comes a day after the Red Cross claimed it was confident the Ebola epidemic that killed thousands of people in West Africa can be contained within 4 to 6 months. Let's first take a look at Mandy Kogosowski's, I'm sorry for butchering the name, report about Ebola and take it from there.
In the wake of close to 5,000 deaths from Ebola, new hope for a cure now looms. In addition to the experimental drug that has arrived from Canada to be tested in Geneva, leading drug makers have announced their plan to work together in order to expedite the development of a vaccine.
We have a vaccine in development which is now in preclinical development. We start clinical trials in January. These will take 2-3 months to do safety studies first, and then by April, May, we will be able to start larger scale clinical trials.
Behaviors and measures.
On Wednesday, the Red Cross Secretary General said it is possible to contain the epidemic within 4 to 6 months if proper conditions exist. However, this time frame is cause of concern.
What we are looking for are solutions. We are now in a situation where we are desperate and we are looking for solutions. Anything that would help to protect people, especially the health workers, at this point would be very useful.
The scope of damage caused by Ebola might exceed the pure medical aspects. The UN Food and Agricultural Organization warns of a potential food crisis in Western Africa if the virus in the region is not contained. due to reduced harvesting and agricultural production, which also led to a rise in food prices.
We're joined from Beersheba by Dr. Leslie Lobel from the Faculty of Health Sciences at Ben Gurion University. Good morning to you, Dr. Lobel.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, breaking news overnight, New York City, first Ebola patient diagnosed. When news like this comes out, what should the people of New York need to know? Because I'm sure that everybody in North America is, to put it in no other words, freaking out right now.
Correct. I think people in New York should feel pretty safe. I graduated from the medical system in that city, and I think it's very capable of handling cases, not just one, but many cases of Ebola, if that should occur.
Now, when we hear reports such as, the doctor who came back from West Africa diagnosed that he took the L train, the 1, the 9, crossed town. I mean, it's important to remind people that they cannot be, that Ebola cannot be transmitted. It's not airborne, right?
That's true. You do need close contact. I'm not too worried about this causing any outbreak within New York City, and I don't think there should be any great cause for concern here.
Of course, tell that to the people of the Upper West Side. That said, when we're looking at Ebola and this news coming out yesterday, the World Health Organization, people saying that the Red Cross saying that within 4 to 6 months, Ebola can be contained. And yesterday we also had news that people are promising a cure by January. Is that even feasible?
Well, there are drugs that do work, and actually even plasmapheresis and giving plasma to people from survivors does work. And I think all of this will be placed in West Africa to try to save lives. But again, for this current outbreak, what's really required is strict quarantine and control of borders, and the disease will burn itself out. I think that 6 months is realistic. I know the vaccine that they're testing does work in monkeys, and it's likely to work in humans. But again, it's too little, too late for the current outbreak.
And it's too little, too late for the current outbreak. And I'm asking you this because Ebola is not something new. It has been in existence in Africa for many, many years. The push to try and find a cure right now, and when you say that it's feasible, that it's realistic, can a cure for Ebola be found within a year? And is this only happening right now because 5 white people have got Ebola?
Well, I don't like to comment on that. I think that in general, the big problem has been that there's too little funds globally for infectious disease research, especially Ebola research. And on top of that, there are only a few labs around the world that can actually work with Ebola because you need a high containment facility. So the resources available have been really relatively small over the past 20 years. And the focus in medical research has been on other diseases, not infectious diseases. So I think this is sort of a wake-up call that we need to rebalance our efforts in terms of medical research toward infectious disease. And I do think it's realistic, given what's in the pipeline, for there to be therapeutics and vaccines available within a year against the strain that's in West Africa. But do remember there are other strains, which I'm working on, that for which there's no cure and which the vaccine, there is a partial vaccine for them, but really none. And there are many other deadly types of viruses. So we're really at the tip of the iceberg.
Tip of the iceberg, as you said, the world probably should wake up, and these things, as you said, are feasible, but research is very, very much needed. Dr. Lobel, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And
thank you.
Thank you. And when we get back, 12 years after journalist Daniel Pearl's brutal murder, artists commemorate his legacy in a special concert held in Israel. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Welcome back. It is still Friday, October 24th, 2014. This is still the morning edition where it should be. Last I checked, I'm still Yela V, and of course, Tony Grant is here with the web review. It's a short one because we have a surprise coming up. But Tony, what's the viral
It's a
spiral?
short one because after you say Shia LaBeouf, what else is there?
What else can you say?
He's been working out in LA, he's doing crazy things, and now composer Rob Cantor, with some help, has done a sort of send-up of Shia LaBeouf's crazy antics with a little, a bit of performance.
With a bit of performance.
Performance, music, singers, dancers. Maybe we can take a quick.
That this is the one that we're looking at. I think we have a video of that.
Cultural moments.
Let's take a look.
Shia LaBeouf, he's brandishing a knife. It's Shia LaBeouf, lurking in the shadows. Hollywood superstar Shia LaBeouf, living in the woods. Shia LaBeouf, killing for sport. Shia LaBeouf, eating all the bodies. Actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
Now it's dark.
I gotta say, if anything good came out of Shia LaBeouf, however which way you say his name, that would be it.
Yeah.
That is
it's 3 minutes worth checking out the whole thing on YouTube.
God,
It's
yeah.
very
good stuff.
good
That is the viral
stuff.
spiral of the day. Tony, I know. I have a surprise for you. And this is actually it's a very emotional moment for me, but let's start with introing this. Okay. To begin with, it has been 10 years ago that Daniel Pearl was kidnapped and killed. Let us remind you who Daniel Pearl was. He was a journalist, just like us, with an American and Israeli citizenship. Sadly, that's just like me. Who was kidnapped by a Pakistani militant and later murdered by al-Qaeda terrorists in Pakistan. And Pearl was kidnapped while working as the South Asia bureau chief of the Wall Street Journal. And his story is very poignant, I believe, these days because of all the beheadings that we're seeing in and around the Middle East of people who are out there just to tell a story. He'd gone to Pakistan as part of an investigation into the alleged links between Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, and al-Qaeda, and finished his life much like the victims he was covering, and actually became the story. Now, leading Jewish and Arab Israeli artists took part in a memorial concert to commemorate Daniel Pearl last night. Concert was part of the 12th annual Daniel Pearl World Music Days. The month-long international series of concerts was established by Pearl's parents to promote tolerance, cultural diversity in memory of their son, and we are very happy and very honored to be joined in studio by the Israeli singer who took part in this concert, David Boza. David Boza.
David Boza.
Yes, good morning, good morning, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, first of all, thank you for being with us, and tell us a little bit about the concert that was held in the city of Lod. And the city of Lod in Israel, I think very few people know, is actually a city that promotes or tries to promote diversity. And then
it doesn't promote diversity, it lives diversity, and it struggles to its diversity. It's a very problematic city. I've actually been involved with trying to help solve some of the issues, social issues, but that's a different story. So last night was in Lod. It was a concert that I was asked to put together, and I brought in musicians that I've been working with for the past year and a half, which is based really on the album that I just released.
That I'm holding here, and I want to ask you about the East Jerusalem, David Broza, West Jerusalem.
No, it's not East Jerusalem, David Broza. It's East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem.
East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem.
Don't complicate it more than it already is.
Then the situation already is.
It's really hard.
Of course. East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem. Interesting that you put today, for example, is a day where all eyes are on Jerusalem because of the violence.
Is there a day when there's not all eyes on Jerusalem?
Yeah, no.
Nothing new about that. But yeah, these are very hard days, and I recorded an album in East Jerusalem in a Palestinian studio, and I brought in my Israeli musicians from Tel Aviv, brought in musicians from East Jerusalem and from all over the country, Israeli, Arabs, Palestinians. For 8 days and 8 nights, we created this beautiful album. Around that album, we also created a film, a documentary, that kind of shows a little bit of a narrative that came out of this incredible experience, and it's all being launched. This album came out about a year ago worldwide, and the film was actually premiered last week at the Woodstock Film Festival. What is the narrative that came out of that?
What is the narrative that came out of the collaboration?
Well, it's just, there's a lot of us in this project. There's musicians, there's singers, there's writers, there's film people, but really several, as we were doing this film, were willing to give actual interviews. And so their thoughts that come to mind of the importance of working together in spite of boycott, in spite of the situation.
Then speaking of last night, as we're looking at some visuals from the concert in Lod to commemorate Daniel Pearl, the journalist that was killed, who was killed 10 years ago. You were asked to put together this. Were you approached by the family? Were you approached by the parents of Daniel Pearl?
It was actually to the credit of the American Embassy here in Tel Aviv that wrote out to me, reaching out, seeing if I'd be interested. I'm not sure if they were aware. I think they were aware of the album. The album actually has one track. It's called The Lion's Den, which is based on a poem that Judah Pearl, the father of Daniel Pearl, wrote, which I heard from a friend that he'd heard him read it out on a Friday sermon at a synagogue in Los Angeles. I contacted Judah because I've been in touch with the family, since the terrible ordeal, the tragedy, and asked him if I could find the poem in any way, and if once I do, if I could turn it into song. So Daniel Pearl appears in the album, is part of the album, and so we brought together to the stage Mira Awad, who's wonderful, of course. I think she's well known all over, Israeli Palestinian,
a wonderful singer,
and activist and great person. And we did some songs from the album, and then we brought the Jerusalem Youth Choir with Micah Handler, who's this great American who came here and put together this choir of Palestinian kids from East Jerusalem and Israeli kids from West Jerusalem, and they also appear in the album. So we actually created a show. It was almost 2 hours long, and the audience was a mixed audience of Arabs and Jews, which was unique.
I think that East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, but as we're looking at them at this project, and of course the concert last night, Tony and I cover so much death and destruction every single morning here, and to see that music can bring both sides together. But the concert yesterday was also very much, as you said, and in the city of Lod that lives, diversity every single day. The agenda or the ideology of the Pearl family is to promote coexistence. I mean, that's where they took their grief, isn't it, in many ways?
Oh, absolutely. But and also celebrating life in a way that really music to me has always been an instrument. Having grown up here and playing in war zones and war times and by the beds of injured and people who go through hard times as a result. Music has a healing power, and as much as it sounds like a cliche and something you're trying to sell, I'm not selling it, I'm living it, and I believe it works.
Cliches are cliches for a reason. I want to take a look at them for a minute at the duet that you had with Mira Awad last night, as we said in the concert for Daniel Pearl. Let's hear a few notes.
המלח והים הם
النور والحقيقة في الصحو أو في السكر فيوني إحساسي أنت حبيبتي האמת והאור מפוכח או שיכור בעיניי רגשותיי את אהבתי النور والحقيقة في الصحو أو في السكر فيوني إحساسي.
This is from the concert last night. That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And the idea of the chorus, the Israeli, the Palestinian children, we keep forgetting that, this is the future. And of course, you're here, and I, would not really think of letting you get out or release you from the studio unless you sing something to us from, hopefully from this album. And please,
of course.
Yes. Which one would that be?
Well, this album has been a mission. I've been working on it for several years. And so now every chance I get, wherever I am, if it's in Jaffa or in Akko and Lod
or in East Jerusalem,
which I frequent very, very often, I'll do a song. It's the first one I wrote for this album. It's called 1, 2, 3. Preach to no one tonight. Just want to tell my tale. When the sun will rise tomorrow, you'll shed facts from hell. Clouds are floating in the sky, shift the mood so fast, like on the streets of Jerusalem. where the quiet's not meant to last. I'm gonna find you tonight. I'm gonna count from 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna feel the peace within me with you right here next to me. I was born into this reality. I was brought up with a war. It doesn't mean I must accept it. Don't wanna fight no more. Young people from all over stray away and cross the lines. It's a dialogue that we're seeking, and we're running out of time. I'm gonna find you tonight. I'm gonna count from 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna feel the peace within me with you right here next to me. I'm gonna find you tonight. I'm gonna count from 1 to 3. I'm gonna feel the peace within me with you right here next to me. I'm gonna find you tonight. I'm gonna count from 1 to 3. I'm gonna feel the peace within me with you right here next to me. With you right here next to me. With you right here next to me.
No,
Lady Gaga, look out.
Lady Yes, I mean, and then this
Lady
is
Gaga is great, by the way.
Yeah, no,
it's
Lady Gaga is
amazing.
amazing, of course. But Tony, or the, I think you have the newest
with
fan. Yeah, I'm getting teary-eyed. This is amazing and beautiful, and listening to the text, I can see, the heart of the matter in East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, this new CD. And you said you were working on this for a year. Parts of these songs were also played last night, and
Of course, we have Mira and I do in this album a beautiful rendition of a song I wrote called Ramallah Tel Aviv, and it's really, I think, sister cities, but they just, they refuse to accept the fact that they're sisters. It's an experience I had.
And
in
they are
Ramallah.
sister cities. Actually, there's something that there's something they exchanged.
Well, they are the heart.
Keys. Yeah.
They did.
They exchanged keys back in the mid '90s when the peace process was still many viable.
Oslo.
Yeah, and no.
I had no idea, but I was visiting Ramallah one night, and I was on the way back. I stopped for a second. I saw these lights in the far distance, and I asked my friend, "What are these?" He says, "That's Tel Aviv." I'm thinking, you guys, this is so tempting.
Exactly.
And it's so difficult.
No, and it's incredibly difficult.
So anyway, we did sing songs from this album last night.
Which, as we said before, the Daniel Pearl Foundation, any type of concert around the world that's going on right now, is in order to promote coexistence, which is a beautiful effort of the family of Daniel Pearl, who was murdered brutally 10 years ago. And of course, we have a few minutes left, but I cannot leave without asking you to sing one more song.
Really?
I'm so sorry. I mean, people in my ear are yelling. People in my ear are yelling. Please have him tell us that it's going to be good. That Yetov. Is there any chance we can get?
Sure, but it's going to run into the next.
It's going to run into the next segment. Let's start it, and we'll roll off from that. Amen.
I'm aging with this song. Forget the childhood stuff. I've been saying it for 37. We're 1 month away from almost 37. Yeah, 37 years since I wrote it with my friend Jonathan Geffen. So. אני מביט מהחלון, וזה עושה לי די עצוב. האביב חלף עבר לו, מי יודע אם ישוב. הליצן היה למלך, הנביא הליצן, ושכחתי את הדרך, אבל אני עוד כאן, ויהיה טוב, כן, לפעמים אני נשבר, אז הלילה
לובשים כנפיים ועפים אל הצבא, ואחרי שנתיים הם חוזרים ללא תשובה. אנשים חיים במתח, מחפשים סיבה לנשום, ובין שנאה לרצח מדברים על השלום. ויהיה טוב, יהיה טוב, כן, לפעמים אני נשבע. אז הלילה, הלילה, כך אני נשאר. כן, שם למעלה בשמיים עננים לומדים לעוף. ודן
Good morning, and thank you for staying with us. October 24th, I-24 News 2014. I flipped it. And this is the time of day of Friday, the end of the week, where we're joined in studio. We say hello, good morning to Mega Geek, author, game designer, wearing a very flashy color today.
Yes.
Ziv Kitao.
Hello.
Yes, how are you?
I'm okay, but that doesn't matter.
Looking very busy. Yes.
Let's do this quickly.
Yes, let's do it to it.
Okay, so first of all, the coldest material in the universe was created, sort of created in Italy in a lab by international team of scientists, and they created this. They took a copper mass of 880 pounds, and they took it down to minus 273 Celsius, which is brilliant because it's almost the absolute zero. And why do we even care about this little copper mass being in a minus? I mean, why? Who cares? Well, first of all, we care because we love it, and we
love it, yeah. Because
we could do it. Why do it? Because you can.
Because you can.
And the other reason, I mean,
I thought this was heading somewhere towards Italian ice cream.
If you're actually looking for a reason, it will just help us understand the whole thing. Why there's more matter than antimatter in the universe.
I personally am relieved.
It's a small thing. It just helps us solve the whole mystery of the universe, but it doesn't matter.
Because we can.
It doesn't matter because we can. That's the main thing.
Okay, moving on.
Warwick David, who was an Ewok on the third Star Wars trilogy movie.
Oh.
The Ewok, the little bunny bear thing.
The bunny bear. That's
Many
not
Star Wars fans are going to kill me now.
Oh God! Didn't we hate this? Sorry, I mean,
yeah, some people hated
did not
them.
like that character. It was him and the other guy that spoke for Jar Jar, Bing 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 Bing.
No, we hate the Bing Bing. We hate the Bing Bing, but now Warwick, he was the Ewok, which is the Carrie Berry thingy wingy on the third movie, which helps Princess Leia, and they're all nice and all.
And
Warwick was like 6 when they did that.
They looked for a new Yoda.
And I don't know what was.
Yeah.
Could be.
Okay.
But then on the Phantom Menace, which had Bing Bing, Warwick was there again, playing a few characters, and now he's back again to the 7th installation of the movie series galore Star Wars, and that will be brilliant.
Why do we need another Star Wars?
I don't know. Every time you start talking about Star Wars, I don't understand anything going on.
It doesn't matter.
I'm still like stuck 2 sentences behind.
It doesn't matter. It's Star Wars, and now we have almost the whole team. Everyone are there. Everybody. This is going to be a 6 hours movie with cameos of every person in the world. And it's going to be brilliant. And let's move onward.
Yeah,
the Hobbit third movie. This is thanks to Tony. We took this item from him because he didn't have time to do it. So, Air New Zealand are doing all sorts of in-flight security thing.
Yes.
And in 2012, they did a really cool Lord of the Rings thing, and now they did a new one, even with more budget, and Elijah Wood is there,
and
Peter Jackson is there.
Let's take a look.
Let's see.
Hey! This is the reason for me to just basically do this. precious.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a whole thing. It's very cool, and Peter Jackson is there, and it's a whole production where they in the Middle Earth and they do this.
And that was Golan.
Cool.
Precious.
And all of Golan
I
there.
did it again. Okay.
Now to more important things. Isaac Asimov wrote an essay in 1959, and it only surfaced now when his friend and colleague Arthur Obermeyer found this paper, which was created for ARPA. Now, for those of you who ask, what is ARPA? Well, ARPA is it's an agency that they did all sorts of science project, and this think tank that Asimov was part of was supposed to create new approaches for ballistic defense system. Now, Asimov wrote this specific essay that we'll get into in a second, and then he left this group because he didn't want to be part of something that will promote war and also show him confidential materials about the army that might limit his freedom of expression and speech. So he decided to get off of that train. But this essay is very interesting because it's about creativity, and according to Asimov, he believes that to be creative, come up with new ideas, it's actually a rare quality, that's how we called it, of people who, we're quoting him, willing to face reason, authority, and common sense, and who have considerable self-assurance. He then said that individual also looks eccentric and behaves in an eccentric way, but he is very knowledgeable in that area of whatever he's working on. So this means that if you're just eccentric and insane, that doesn't mean you're a genius.
That was exactly what I was drawing out of this. And great.
And Asimov says that basically the whole idea of group thinking, of think tanks, does not work. The individual, we need to identify that individual who can come up with new ideas, feed him. The group needs to feed him with knowledge, with information, and then basically send him on his way to a solitary area where he can think by himself and come up with tons of new ideas, and then come back to the group. Basically what he says, that the whole thing of let's think together and have this, it does not work. You will not get new and fresh ideas.
As a lawyer, I got to tell you, I'm all for it.
So the whole essay is on the MIT Research website, so you can go and read it, and that's amazing. And very important,
not least,
music. How important music is, we all know. It influences us. It's brilliant, and now there's a whole research that we've done, and I'm going to just cut it down to the 4 type of music and what it's for. Classical music, if your work involves numbers and attention to details. Pop music is great if your work involves data entry and working to deadlines. Ambient music, if your work involves solving equations. And dance music, if your work involves proofreading and problem solving.
So for deadlines.
We know here all day long.
Basically, yes.
So deadlines, it's pop,
because it's involved data entry.
Pop. Kylie?
Data entry
You want Kylie?
I want Kylie.
So that's a very long research that they did, and it's brilliant, and now you know.
And now we know.
And this is it for me. Take it away from me.
I'm just going to leave the studio. My God, that was the wind man, Ziv Kital. Of course, now, Tal Shalev, I'm leaning backwards. This is Tal Shalev, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent, but her main goal in life is to bring us the Instagram photos of politicians, anything that's making a photography splash out there. Shoot.
I kept the best for last, so we'll start out very mildly, and it'll build up. I have a surprise for you today.
Okay, lean back, Ziv. Good.
But we're starting out, of course. I know you wanted to spare it, but I have to. Our beloved Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, celebrated his 65th birthday today. This week, of course. On Tuesday. Yes, please, yes, sing.
Okay. Please, come on.
Okay.
This means he has to retire, right? That's the retire age.
That is the retire age.
Well, let me tell you this. He has this traditional surprise party. Every year it's about the same time, the same place.
And in the same room.
But this year, one of Netanyahu's, let's say, a journalist that is not very fond of Netanyahu, actually disclosed the surprise on Facebook the day before. He wrote something like, Netanyahu, listen, I don't really like what you're doing, X, Y, Z, and just so you know, tomorrow at 3:30, your bureau is planning your birthday.
That's nasty.
And every year, you can see all the a few ministers coming, and that is how you judge who is trying to be on Netanyahu's best side.
Yeah.
This year there were fewer ministers than usual. But you mentioned his pension aides.
Naftali
Well,
Bennett
Gilad
was not
Erdan.
there, was
well,
he?
he sent a video message. He did.
Naftali Bennett sent a video
Yeah,
message.
he did.
Nice.
A communication, the communications minister, Gilad Erdan, who is now very close to Netanyahu, he actually gave him he gave him a speech, he greeted him, and he told him, listen, you're only at the beginning of the road.
Okay.
Churchill started to be prime minister at 65, Reagan president at 70, Ariel Sharon at 72, and do you know who has a birthday on Sunday?
No.
Mrs. Hillary Clinton, who will be 67. So before we start pointing out Netanyahu's age, we need to look around. And since we want Clinton to come in,
you
some
said
people,
it. Definitely some
whatever.
people that we don't know. Yeah, wanted to
Women,
come in.
okay.
But
He did get
hasn't Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu been prime minister since he was 17 already?
It feels
I know.
we can move on.
Exactly. Come on.
It's okay. He'll be there till he's
Till
90.
he's
It's
90.
okay.
Yes.
But he got a phone call from Kerry.
From John Kerry.
From
Okay.
Vladimir Putin.
Okay.
And from Angela Merkel. They all phoned him up. But Bloomberg, former mayor
Flew
Bloomberg,
in?
no, but he posted a photo on Instagram in which he went out of his way. He posted a photo on Instagram wishing a very happy birthday to his good friend Netanyahu.
Because this looks like Bloomberg's like, oh, it's Netanyahu's birthday. Let me fly to Israel. I'll shake his hand. I'll fly back. Okay.
So while Netanyahu was here dealing with his birthday and a lot of political mess, his defense minister, Moshe Ya'alon, had to go to the United States and try and ease the tensions. So all the photos posted on Instagram, you can see this smile bursting out of Ya'alon. Here we see him now with Samantha Powers. This is Chuck Hagel, the American defense chief. Also, we had a same smile with Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General.
None with John Kerry. Oh.
Okay, this is at ground zero. It's the only photo he's not smiling on.
And yet the pose.
Look, Bill de Blasio, look at that smile. Look how great, look how warmful they are. And Ya'alon did say before he left, he announced that one of his missions, one of his goals of the trips was to express Israel's appreciation to the United States. You know, White House.
The phrases was to grovel and beg for forgiveness?
This was the highlight, but.
Ooh, Charlie Rose.
Ya'alon and Charlie Rose, an hour of interview. I have to say, it was fascinating.
Really?
These are two, very well-experienced men.
And Charlie Rose doesn't hold back. Charlie Rose is like one of these old news, old school. He's going to ask the questions. There's no PC. There's no interesting.
And he dealt with it. Ya'alon dealt with it quite well, I have to say.
And I think you got to remind our audience that Ya'alon is the man famously who is famous for coming out with lines that tend to really aggravate the United States.
Well, he did obsessive messianic, but he's trying to make up for that.
He's trying to make amends. Hence
Definitely, he's trying to make amends. So that was Ya'alon. Okay, now we will go to our surprise of the week.
Okay.
We have a new Instagram star for you too. Our new.
Notice how Tyler's no.
I saw the picture.
We always have, we have royalty.
Yes,
so we have Harry, and we have Abdallah and Rania. Yeah. Well, I got you a real good one this time. This is apparently a huge Instagram star. He's quite close to us. His name is Sheikh Hamdan. He is the second son of Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum from Dubai. I don't know if you know this guy. He has more than 1,300,000 followers on Instagram. He is the crown prince.
Lord.
Okay, look, he's 32 years old. His family has $4 billion. He's a horse rider. He's a skydiver. He's a fisher. He is a poet.
Yummy.
Under the name, look at that picture.
Listen, even Zivki Chara's like, he's hot.
Okay, he's hot. He's rich and hot. He's a poet under the name of Faza.
Faza?
Yeah.
He's got a nickname, Faza?
Faza, that's his nickname.
Oh my God. Wow. In the desert with the thing and the bird and the,
And he's like a master of social media. He's very active on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. He has there's even a special app on the iPhone and other phones, on cell phones, that you can just log in to see what's going on.
Can we dress him up in this app? Is this like a
his bestie
turn it on, Prince Hamdan.
I'm going to
I'm going in.
You can keep talking.
I'm going in.
Yeah, go on. I see.
I'm with you.
Get me the Prince Hamdan app now, okay? This is my mission to you. Prince Hamdan.
So wait.
with the owl,
He
and yes.
opened up the falconry season this month, and he also has his special Faza Championship, in which there are competitors in hunting, shooting, diving, and Al Yalla, which is a traditional dancing in the Emirates. And I think we're just gonna. He's gonna be a regular.
We're gonna have to have the Prince Hamdan, corner.
But the bad news.
He's married,
engaged.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Not at all.
To a Palestinian refugee, by the way, and his father actually threatened to disown him because she's not enough high society. But he went with his true love, and they are set to be married. And
you're a princess of a cultural icon.
Of the Polish Jewish persuasion.
You should go.
Yeah, I should. Yeah, exactly.
And move aside so I can take him.
I'll convert to anything for this man. So his father, but listen to the story. His father threatens to disown him. He's going to marry the love. I'm hearing Disney.
Yeah.
I'm hearing Disney.
He looks like Aladdin, actually.
He looks like Prince Ali.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. This is the man. Ziv, I don't know. This is the Falcon completely. And Ziv Kitar is going to fight me. You would switch sides for this guy, wouldn't you?
Okay, anyways, we're not going
to
be here.
We're done, basically, but, regional alliances and how the Israeli Prime Minister and Defense Minister leadership are talking all the time about regional alliances. So now we reach out to Dubai. We reach out to the Dubai Crown Prince. Every Friday we'll be willing to meet him.
Next Friday we'll be there.
We'll be there, exactly. Next Friday.
Inshallah.
And this is, sadly, I think this is all the time we have. Thank you for joining us, Tal Shalev, Ziv Kitar, I-24 News. Stick with us. Next week, we're in Dubai with Prince Hamdan, both Tal and myself, wearing nothing but bikinis. And that is it for us this week. Don't forget to tune in Monday morning, I-24 News, morning edition, the place you should be.